It's 10 o'clock on Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. This is the time and place set for the meeting of the Nevada Commission on Ethics. Let's have a roll call. Chair Scherer is here. Vice Chair Wong? Here. Commissioner Lowry? Here. Commissioner Moran is excused. Commissioner Olson?
Oh, it wasn't my.
Commissioner Moran.
Commissioner Moran, are you on?
Yes, I'm available. I can hear okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good, thank you. Commissioner Reynolds?
I'm here on Zoom. Thank you.
And Commissioner Yan?
Here.
Commissioner Langton is excused today. The staff, Executive Director Armstrong? Here. Commission Counsel Bassett?
Here.
Outreach and Education Officer Harvey?
They are unable to attend today.
Okay. Investigator Terry? Also
Excused.
excused, okay. Senior Legal Researcher Hazlett?
I'm here.
And Executive Assistant Pedrosa? Yeah. Thank you. I'll let you join me, I'd ask you to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. That brings us to public comment. Assistant Pedrosa, do we have any public comment today?
We do. Jeff Church is on Zoom and would like to make public comment at this time.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can.
Wonderful. I'll be very brief. I did have a couple handouts that I submitted, so hopefully you have those. They're relatively brief. I do address number 7, the ethics issue with Trustee Rodriguez. I believe that even consistent with the ruling from the judge that there are violations of wearing the uniform or using the uniform in campaign ads, even if you agree with the judge. But yes, I endorse an appeal for that. I also think it's ethically necessary to ask who's paying for his legal representation, since McDonnell Douglas provides legal services to the Washoe County School District and represents them currently. And then he has voted in favor of some of that legal representation. And I'm assuming he's receiving pro bono, which has not been disclosed in his financial disclosure statements or any legal defense fund with the Secretary of State, while of course Governor Lombardo has and is doing that as required. Additionally, I raised some issues and questions regarding a letter of censure that was issued to me as a trustee with the Washoe County School District, asking you what the appeal process is and how I address that. So have a great day. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Church. Do we have any other public comment?
We do not.
No one on Zoom, and no one by email?
Correct.
Good. Thank you very much. That brings us then to item number 3, approval of the minutes. The August 21, 2024 commission meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes?
I would like to note a correction to the minutes. In the minutes under roll call, Commissioner Olson is shown appearing via Zoom and in person. And to my recollection, he was only in person. So that needs to be changed.
I think you meant Reynolds, right?
Reynolds, sorry. I was looking at you. No, sorry. Reynolds, sorry. Reynolds.
Thank you.
That is correct. I was going to make up that comment, but I did appear in person.
Any other questions or comments on the minutes? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes with that correction?
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Olson makes the motion. Commissioner Yen seconds.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And then that will bring us to item number 4, which is the discussion of possible action to approve a proposed stipulation concerning ethics complaint number 24005C regarding Donald Otto, trustee, Palomino Valley General Improvement District. I served on the review panel for this next item, therefore I'm precluded from participating in the proceedings. In the matter further, pursuant to NRS 281A.2204, Vice Chair Wallen will therefore take over this agenda item.
Thank you. At this time, I want to also note that Chair Scheer, Commissioners Moran and Olson served on the review panel for this matter and are precluded from participating in any further proceedings in this matter pursuant to NRS 281A.2204. At this time, I would like to ask if there are any disclosures or abstentions on this item.
Yes, Vice Chair.
Commissioner Yin.
I'm a partner with the law firm of McDonald Carano, of which Washoe County is a client. Therefore, pursuant to NRS 281A.065 subsections 4 and 5, I have a commitment in a private capacity to my law firm and the client based on the law firm's continuing business relationship with that client. The independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my situation could be materially affected in voting upon items relating to Washoe County. To avoid conflicts of interest and any appearance of impropriety, including complying with the ethics law and judicial canons applicable to the commission, I am disclosing this relationship and will abstain from participation in this matter.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Yin. At this time, I would like to ask the attorneys for the parties to identify themselves.
Rebecca Brew, Lemons, Grundy, and Eisenberg on behalf of Mr. Otto.
Ross Armstrong, Executive Director on behalf of myself.
Okay, there you go. Now we can see you. Thank you. I was going to ask you to turn your camera on. Thank you very much.
I was trying to stay incognito because it's not a hair day.
Oh, we all have those. All right. At this time, I would like to ask the Executive Director for his presentation on the proposed stipulation.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. This case, we received a complaint on January 22nd of 2024 regarding Mr. Otto. On March 4th of 2024, the commission accepted jurisdiction and ordered an investigation into Mr. Otto's use of equipment and property of the Palomino Valley General Improvement District, and then his non-disclosure at meetings regarding certain road maintenance policies. The investigation found that Otto, at all relevant times was vice chair of that board, that the board had a policy for prioritizing road maintenance within the improvement district, that Mr. Otto used that equipment to improve his road contrary to the road improvement policy. His road and a road that's accessed by many others, and he also did work on many other roads, not just his own road, and that Otto voted on matters in which he had interest without a proper disclosure or abstention. That information was presented to a review panel on June 27th, 2024. The review panel referred this case related to the alleged violations of 400 subsection 2 and subsection 7 and 421 and 423. Following the review panel, the parties engaged in a settlement conference in which the current stipulation was reached. The terms of this stipulation are as follows. The parties agree Otto's conduct will be considered one, his course of conduct will be considered one non-willful violation of 281A 400 subsection 2, that the alleged violations of 400 subsection 7 and 420 subsection 1 and 3 will be dismissed, that Mr. Otto will pay a $1,000 monetary penalty pursuant to 281A 793, and that if Mr. Otto returns to public life within the next year, he will be required to complete training within 60 days of the start of his employment. In addition, a confidential letter of caution will be issued primarily around the disclosure of abstention requirements. Some of the mitigating factors in this case included Mr. Otto has no prior history before the Ethics Commission. He responded immediately and cooperated in the investigation. And as previously mentioned, although he did perform work to improve his particular road, his work also generally helped those within his improvement district. And so that is the stipulated agreement in this case, and I'm happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Okay. Ms. Brew, would you like to add anything to Executive Director Armstrong's comments?
No, other than just as an aside, I wanted to thank Mr. Armstrong and Ms. Bassett for their professionalism and cooperation and flexibility. And this was my client's first foray before the Ethics Commission, and sometimes they have a hard time understanding, you know, what did I did wrong? What did I do wrong? Anyway, I just wanted to thank them for their professionalism, both of them. It helped immensely bring this to an expeditious resolution. So that's my only comment.
All right, thank you. Fellow commissioners, any comments, questions? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to move to accept the terms of the stipulated agreement as presented by the parties to resolve case number 24-005C Otto, and direct Commission Counsel Bassett to finalize the legal form of the stipulation and the other matters relating thereto. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion. I move to accept the terms of the stipulated agreement as presented by the parties and direct Commission Counsel to finalize the agreement in appropriate legal form.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second the motion. Commissioner Reynolds.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. And Ms. Bru, thank you very much for your comments, and I appreciate your good work with our fellow staff here. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thanks, Ross. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Vice Chair Wong. Appreciate that. That brings us to item number 5, discussion and possible action to approve a proposed stipulated deferral concerning ethics complaint number 24-027C regarding Kelvin Watson, Executive Director, Las Vegas Clark County Library District. Commissioners Langton, Reynolds, and Yen served on the review panel for this matter and are therefore precluded from participating in any further proceedings pursuant to NRS 281A.220 sub 4. Will the attorneys for the parties please identify themselves?
Good morning, Scott Abbott from the law firm of K. Merziger Abbott on behalf of Mr. Watson.
And Ross Armstrong, Executive Director on behalf of myself.
Thank you. And Executive Director Armstrong, will you please provide us your presentation on the proposed stipulation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This complaint was filed on March 12th of 2024. On April 24th, the commission accepted jurisdiction and ordered an investigation in the matter, specifically related to alleged violations of 281A 400 subsection 1 and subsection 2. The allegations involved Mr. Watson accepting tickets to the Super Bowl that was held in Las Vegas. The investigation determined a number of facts, including that Watson was engaged with the National Football League Foundation in activities that were beneficial to both the NFL and to the library district. That the average Super Bowl tickets for that Super Bowl were valued at $8,600. That Watson accepted the gift and used the gift for himself attending the Super Bowl. But I think the critical finding of fact to the stipulated result today is that Watson, before attending the Super Bowl, asked his agency counsel if it was appropriate to accept the gift, and the agency counsel cleared him accepting the gift. Under the ethics law, specifically provision 281A 790 subsection 5, there is a safe harbor provision that limits the commission's ability when there is an instance when a public official does what we ask them to do, which is to check with their counsel provides advice, and they follow that advice. If that advice turns out to be incorrect, the commission is limited in the maximum that could be found in a case where those are the facts is a non-willful violation. After the review panel referred this matter, the parties agreed, the parties participated in a settlement conference, and the result of that settlement conference is the stipulated deferral agreement before you. The terms of that agreement include that the deferral period will be 1 year, that Mr. Watson must comply with the ethics law and not be subject of a complaint that a review panel finds there's just and sufficient cause to refer to the commission. And then to me, the most important and beneficial parts of the agreement is that Mr. Watson arrange and implement ethics law training for himself and for all of the staff at the library district I will report that he's already asked about the different ways in which we can do that. So he's being proactive in ensuring that the library district receives ethics training and that he work with his board to amend policies and procedures that currently apply to the library district. Specifically, there's one in there about gifts that puts a limit. Our law doesn't have a limit on the value of gifts. Their internal procedure does. And you know, for us, if he complies with the deferral agreement for that 1 year and meets all of those requirements, the alleged violation will be dismissed, and the library district will have a strong ethics foundation to build on going forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the stipulated deferral agreement proposal.
Mr. Abbott, anything that you'd like to add?
Nothing to add other than to repeat what was previously said. I really appreciate all of the hard work from Executive Director Armstrong and Commission Counsel Bassett and Commissioner Yin, who assisted us in trying to achieve this resolution. I really appreciate their cooperation with us.
Thank you. Any questions for either Mr. Abbott or Executive Director Armstrong? Commissioner Lowry?
I don't have a question. I basically have a comment to government employees and people that fall under the ethics laws in the state of Nevada. You have the opportunity in our state to be offered tickets to a multitude of sporting venues and events. We have football, we have hockey, we have rodeo, we have Formula One. It goes on and on. Don't do it. It is highly, highly likely that your organization has a policy and procedure that prohibits you from accepting gifts. This case is going to be an outlier in terms of its result because the individual relied on the advice of counsel. It was wrong advice, it was bad advice. But our law looks at and gives mitigators to people who reasonably go to their counsel, and the safe harbor implications are then going to apply. But just as a cautionary tale, as the events unfold for the remainder of this year and moving forward, if you are a public official, public employee, do not take tickets, accept gifts to these various sporting events. That's all I got to say.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? I'd like to add one other. I think Executive Director Armstrong pointed out the one mitigating factor on the Lions Council. I think that the other mitigating factor here, as far as I'm concerned, is the library district really doesn't regulate the NFL. It couldn't do anything for the NFL. This was a program that benefited the library district and its activities. So I think that's also a mitigating factor in this particular case. As Commissioner Lowry said, in other cases where those factors aren't present, if those factors were not present, both the advice of counsel and the lack of regulatory authority over the NFL, I think this would be a much different case. With that, do we have a motion to approve the deferral agreement?
I'll make it. I move to accept the terms of the stipulated deferral agreement as presented by the parties to resolve case number 24-027C Watson and direct Commission Counsel Bassett, finalize the legal form of the stipulation and other matters relating thereto.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Commissioner Olson seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And again, show Commissioner Reynolds and Yen is abstaining. That brings us to item number 6. Consideration and review of the final draft fiscal year 2024 annual report presented by the Executive Director pursuant to NAC 281A 180 sub 2 and possible direction thereon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Executive Director Armstrong. The draft annual report is in your packet for your final review and approval. I have received some additional like typographical adjustments from the chair. But this is essentially our final draft, so we can make those changes. If anybody has anything else they notice that they think should change, the biggest difference from the last version you saw to this version is that the data has been verified and those charts have been updated with information. And so I'm happy to take any suggested comments or changes or answer any questions you may have.
Do you have any questions about the changes I sent you? Do you want to go through those?
No, I think those changes all made, just some wording changes. All make sense.
Should we go through those for the other commissioners, or
We could, let's see.
if you want, I can go through them, or you can.
Do you have them handy?
I have them handy.
All right, so we'll let you do it.
So yeah, mostly typos. On page 3, I think we had the commission's efforts without an apostrophe. We had an extra what in the second to last line in understanding what the ethics commission, what we do, so strike that extra what. I changed the wording slightly because obviously the ethics law doesn't actually preserve the public's trust in government at all times because people violate it. So I changed the wording to the ethics law is designed to preserve the public's trust. Let's see.
Page
On page 8, oh, I'm sorry. What do
Oh,
you
did
have?
you have, oh, 8, you're right.
Page 8. On the discussion of the agreement on overarching priorities, the commission held a strategic planning session during the commission's April 2024 public meeting. I added to receive public input as one of the items there, as we did ask for, and I think we received a little bit of public input, although not much. On page 10, there was a reference to the legislative and elections. I think that actually should be another correction. Should be legislative operations and elections committee.
Yeah, that
And it said
and should go.
commission. So there's an extra and it was commission instead of committee. And then in 2025 legislative priorities, commission affirms its dedication to, and it said supporting ethics legislation. I think that probably depends on whether we think the ethics legislation is quality legislation.
That's a good point.
So I changed that to providing input on ethics legislation. And then just on page 14, I think by the time we publish this report, some of these things will be past tense. So for example, a new public hearing was held in August of 2024 with approval of adopted regulations targeted, and I don't know, we actually approved them.
Yeah, we could say
Regulations that are
approval of
September.
regulations in, yeah.
So, and that was it for me. There's nothing too substantive, but
And I had already sent my comments to them before this even came out the second time, so. And they incorporated them, so.
any other questions or comments?
No, I like the report. I like the format and I think it's very informative and good job to staff.
Yeah, well done.
We have then a motion to approve the report.
I'll move to approve the fiscal year 2024 annual report as presented and amended and direct the executive director to publish the report after a final formatting and data review by staff.
I'll second that motion with the changes as indicated by Vice Chair Wallen and Chair Scherer.
Commissioner Yanda, was your motion to include those
It
changes?
said it as amended, I
As
put
amended.
amended,
Great.
so it could just be a second of that motion.
Okay. So second, so Commissioner Reynolds seconds that motion.
That's correct.
Is there any discussion on the motion further? Okay, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. This is item number 7, discussion and possible action to direct Commission Council to take legal steps necessary to defend the Commission and Commissioners in Rodriguez versus Nevada Commission on Ethics, Second Judicial District Court case, CV 24-02169. At this time, I'd like to ask if there are any disclosures or abstentions on this item. Commissioner Yan.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm a partner with the law firm of McDonald Crono, of which Mr. Rodriguez is a client. Therefore, pursuant to NRS 281A.065 subsections 4 and 5, I have a commitment in a private capacity to my law firm and the client based on the law firm's continuing business relationship with that client. Consequently, the independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my situation could be materially affected in voting upon items relating to Mr. Rodriguez. To avoid conflicts of interest and any appearance of impropriety, including complying with the ethics law and judicial canons applicable to the commission, I am disclosing this relationship and will abstain from participation in this matter.
Thank you. Commission Counsel Bassett, would you please give us your presentation on this matter?
Thank you. A complaint has been filed in the Second Judicial District Court that names the commission, the executive director, and the commissioners, and it is seeking to prevent the commission from moving forward with its appeal of the district court's order granting Joseph Rodriguez's petition for judicial review based on an assertion that the authority granted by this commission to file that appeal violated the open meeting law. Today, I'm requesting authority from the commission to defend it and all the named parties in that district court action.
Any questions for Commission Counsel Bassett? What's the pleasure of the commission?
Oh, you want a motion?
Sure.
All right.
If you're ready for a motion, then
Sure.
go ahead.
I move to grant Commission Council authority to defend the commission, commissioners, and executive director in the case filed in the Second Judicial District Court, Rodriguez versus NCOE, case number CV 24-02169, including filing any appropriate motions. Commission Council shall bring back case dispositive decisions such as dismissals or stipulated settlement agreements before the full commission. I further move to delegate authority to the chair and vice chair to consult with Commission Council regarding any legal issues or decisions pursuant to NRS 241.0357 and NAC 281A.055, but for agreements to dismiss or settlement.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Lowry seconds. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 8 is the report by Executive Director on agency status and operations and possible discussion thereon. Executive Director Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. I have attached an executive director report under agenda item 8. I'll quickly go through some of the highlights of our operations. Our regulations are approved. If you remember the first time we went, they had some comments, so we had another hearing and we went back the second time. There were no questions or concerns, and they were approved. I've attached many of the changes are kind of with wording and clarification, but there are a handful of operational changes. I provided a table there for you. I think our best customer service change in those regulations is that now if somebody is elected, they can seek an advisory opinion from us, even if they may not start that job for a couple of months. Like once they're certified as elected, we can then help them so they can start off on day one on a right ethical foot. Some of the timeframes of the annual report has changed, but I don't know that there'll be, like the requirement is that I give you my report by October 31st. We're here in October finalizing the report. So it's just in the wording in case we end up having to need like 2 or 3 meetings, 1 July, we're not going to be pressed to get it all done by the second meeting of the time. There's some good timeframes for Liz in terms of making sure we're timely on advisory opinions, or at least the people who request them are timely in providing information back. And the other one that is I think the most substantive is the ability to reject complaints that are anonymous or not against a person, that don't meet our requirements. What we've done since it was adopted is we've adopted an internal operating policy that when I make that discretionary decision to reject the complaint, that if we know who the person is, they have an opportunity to cure it, we reach out to them, but also that the chair and vice chair are notified, so that there's not like this ever question about how many of these are getting rejected. The chair and vice chair will know the ones that are being rejected. So those are just kind of an overview of those, regulation changes. We did have a surge of complaint cases in August and September that we're working through, and things have kind of gotten back to a normal flow over the last week. But I appreciate all the commissioners' hard work and this avalanche of cases coming your way to review. And then I wanted to report that the associate counsel recruitment has been unsuccessful so far. There was just a new round of attorneys that passed the bar, and so we're working on promotion there. We originally just placed the ad in the Washoe County Bar Association. This time we paid to have it in the statewide Bar Association online. That has not produced applicants in the last 30 days or so. And so we continue to operate without that person in that role. I want to thank Investigator Terry, who has been helping with some of the initial drafting on cases, which is, not his ordinary role, but it's kind of a fun, exciting, I don't know if you would say it's exciting, but he's stepped in to help work on that caseload. If you remember, we've approved the strategic plan at the August commission meeting. It's been published, it's been promoted, and internally the staff is working on an implementation plan for that strategic plan. So it isn't just like approved and sit on a shelf as strategic plans can often do. And so everyone in the office has either something that they're the lead on in developing the implementation plan or assisting with. And so going forward, you will see a strategic plan item on my report every time so that you know where we are in terms of that implementation. Just some quick budget updates. There was an extension in time on federal grants. So the funding for our Nevada Ethics Online was supposed to shift from federal grant funding to the mix of general fund and local assessments. We now have more months on the federal grant, so that will save us some general fund funding that may be applied elsewhere. And then we had some issues with the Administrative Services Division in processing things in a timely manner at the end of the fiscal year. So we will have a handful of stale claims just based on the timing of that. And then our budget for the next legislative session has been submitted to the Governor's Finance Office for review. So let's hit that next stage. Upcoming meetings, November 13th will be in Reno at the State Bar. And then we have tentatively scheduled a January 15th meeting. We have a policy about meeting coordination internally, and that has me coming to you at the last meeting of the year, which will be November, with the list of dates for the next year to approve. And so expect that at the next meeting to kind of take an outlook on the next year. So that is it for the Executive Director's report. I'm happy to hear any feedback or answer any questions.
Commissioner Olson.
In regards to your change on elected officials, once you're certified, would this include legislators who have conveniently excluded themselves from the ethics?
So I've always wondered, we don't get, since I have been here, we have not received an advisory opinion from the legislature. I think we would have to, and we would have to take a look at, like if they asked us for an advisory opinion on a question about disclosing or abstaining on a vote, we don't have jurisdiction. So I don't think we could do an advisory opinion on it. We haven't been, Ms. Bassett, I have not had the opportunity to really dive into that legal analysis. But if they had something on the use of legislative staff, they still are within our jurisdiction for those purposes of requesting an opinion. Just as if they violated, they're within our jurisdiction to take action on a complaint. So
if they violated an action involving a staff member.
Yeah, so there's, the current status of jurisdiction over legislators is if it's a core legislative function, we don't have jurisdiction. there's some questions about what exactly is a core legislative function. The most common one is voting on bills and conflicts of interest. So they're all, kind of a case by case basis, but all the other, provisions of the ethics law we could potentially have jurisdiction on. It's just, is the act that they're doing that may violate it be considered a core?
And the reason I ask is, as you well know, I take exception to them saying, carving themselves out of the ethics rules as it applies to this board or commission, and then saying they do their own, but they never have, so.
But so if they were to come to us with an advisory opinion, our process is that Ms. Bassett and I, under the administrative code or the NRS, one of those two, that we have to agree that we have jurisdiction, and so I'd run down to Liz's office and say, what do you think? And we'd make a decision. The good thing is, like, we have had in cases in the past and the not too distant past where somebody's elected, they know they're gonna have a conflict of interest right when they start, and we reject their advisory opinion because they are not in that seat yet. And we said, if through regulation, we can kind of, for this purpose, this narrow purpose. So that's the purpose of that change, and hopefully it will be. And we're gonna work on, what I will say is, working with our outreach and education officer after the election to promote that change so that people know they can come to us before they start their job.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
So in the budget, please refresh my memory. You guys put in for a case management system?
We did. The three main things are a case management system, outreach funding. So there's some things that we didn't think about when we started the position, like video editing software and stuff for tables, like at conferences, like extra pens and those types of things that we just pull out of operating. And then a potential relocation of the office to Reno to improve that recruitment and retention. Because I think, like with associate counsel, that's probably one of our biggest hurdles, is that there's a whole group of folks who don't want to make that drive down. So those are our three items. The biggest is the case management system, and the smallest is the training item.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you.
There's nothing else on that item. We'll move to item 9. Report on outreach and education, possible discussion. Since our outreach and education officer's not with us today, I assume Executive Director Armstrong, you'll handle that.
Yes, I apologize that I have to talk so much. But our outreach and education officer had a last minute conflict and cannot attend. So I will do my best with the report that they prepared. First, I'll talk to you just a little bit about the outreach events. You can see we went to the Nevada Association of Counties conference recently in Carson City. Next week, we'll be doing a tabling and a training at the Nevada American Planning Association conference, so land use planners, those types of folks. And then I will just briefly kind of expand on the Government Civil Attorneys Conference. Is a conference from the public lawyers section of the bar every year. It's a 3-day conference, and this was, they ask us to present about every other year. And this is the last year, the Supreme Court Law Library had a table, and I was like, oh, I'm jealous. We should have a table as the Ethics Commission. And so Sam worked together to put a table at the conference, and they had a handful of other. So we had not only our presentation, but we also had a table where we had information about our open position and copies of the manual. And Sam developed these resource cards that you see. So one is the front of the card, one is the back, and every table had them so they can easily access the manual and provide feedback. So that was one of our outreach approaches, is to see, like, these conferences are actually good opportunities to get in front of people, even if we're not doing a session, to be like, we're here, we're a resource. We're not just gonna like call you when you're in trouble. So I think there's things we can always improve on and approaches, but that's one of the things we're looking at, is how can you go to a conference and hit 50 or 75 different agencies in one foul swoop rather than trying to go one by one. And I will also note that during my presentation, I did the training at the conference, and it wasn't our ethics basics course. It focused on how, as a government attorney, can you prevent ethics issues in your agency, and what do you do when you respond? Like, what happens when you get the notice of complaint? And there was feedback from the room that they are noticing the commission's commitment to education and outreach, and noted that the commission seems more helpful than it has been in a long time in terms of those agency attorneys feeling comfortable to reach out for direction. They did say, appropriate for today's agenda, they did say that there's still, like, the gift rules are a mystery. And so that was some of the feedback, is that remains one area where they have trouble giving advice. They don't know where that line is.
Just say no.
You'll see also that there's continued growth in our social media accounts. There's a big jump in the X followers. It's actually a smaller in quantity jump than the LinkedIn followers. LinkedIn remains our kind of our biggest presence. But Sam has been focusing on aligning posts with timely events, right? Like I'm gonna plan 3 months of posts on social media. Well, that doesn't quite work on social media because there could be something interesting that happens and you can pull people in. The recent trainings, I'll do a quick correction on that page 3 of the report. That 372 total is live and virtual training, so it's not just live. But you'll see that doesn't include the numbers from the Civil Attorneys Conference, which is about 220 people additional trained. And we have those upcoming live trainings for and the Board of Museums and History. The 2 pie graphs you see, we're like, okay, when do we have enough feedback to make it meaningful to share with the commission? So we now have a feedback form that folks can complete at the end of taking training. There's a QR code on the last slide of the presentation, and they answer a few questions. And you can see that the vast majority of folks agree or strongly agree that the training significantly improved their understanding of the ethics law, and that it also improved their knowledge of the ability to confidentially access resources. So those are both good things in the training sphere. On the last page, you can see our publications. We published our first newsletter by email. That was sort of an adventure in figuring out the right way to get that produced and out, but we got that done. So we anticipate that being quarterly. Oh, we have the annual report to publish, and we published the strategic plan back in September. And then finally, in terms of the public information officer duties, we're still trying to figure out the best way to categorize these. But for the fiscal year 25, a total of 36 incoming public records requests or requests for information. So, public records request, for example, is like, please give me the acknowledgement form for this public official or for this judge or for this whoever, right? That is an incoming question. Sometimes the answer is we don't do that. There's no record. Requests for information might be like, hey, I'm thinking about this thing. Can you give me some advice on this topic? And we say, no, but here's the advisory opinion process. Here are some educational resources. So that's the difference between the request for a record. They're like actually asking for documents versus just a request for information. This current, I'll have to check our log. I think this primarily covers like incoming email requests. We don't currently capture necessarily every like phone call or direct message that we get. So we'll work on that tracking. I mean, at some point you don't want tracking to take over the actual job of doing the stuff, but this is a great way of letting you know, like, okay, yes, this is why we asked for a position, that part of the job could be handling this stuff, because before, this was split between the executive director and the commission council with great help from the executive assistant and the SLRs. It's kind of a team effort. So to have a focused and consistent process for that is great. So that is the outreach and training report. We're happy to answer any questions and receive any feedback.
Any questions for Executive Director Armstrong?
I have a comment. I know they're not called barcodes, but I remember what they're called. That's amazing. QR.
Yeah, QR codes.
That's amazing to put that on there. I really like that.
Yeah, it's
like
instant.
easy for everybody.
Thank you. Who did the newsletter? Who did it go out to? Who was it distributed to?
Ooh, that is definitely a question for our outreach and education officer. But I know that I think we collected a number of emails, like primarily state emails. And then I want to say that early on in the project, like took a while from when we did this to when it occurred, but I believe we got a message through NACO and the League of Cities that they sent out and said, hey, if you want to sign up for the ethics newsletter, you could do so here. And so now that that's going, we'll have a way to collect those, ask people when we do a training, sign up, that type of thing. So hopefully that just grows and grows and the content is kind of like a mix of what is the commission doing and then also like here's recent cases. Not quite like a full legal digest report, but like, hey, here's the 5 cases we decided in the last quarter. Especially if you're an agency attorney, you might want to take a peek at these particular ones.
Any other questions or comments?
Maybe the next newsletter should have something on gifts, since that seems to be such a tricky thing.
It's I will say that the gift issue it's tricky to teach because we don't have a lot of good prior cases. It can be tricky for staff to determine like, what do we do with this one? And I believe in a recent panel recommendation, I kind of came up with a matrix that said, here's the highest risk type of gift. If it's high value and there's a high nexus with your job, that's like the highest risk like gift you can take. If there's a low value and a low nexus with your job, that's kind of a low risk gift. And then if it's one or the other, it's kind of moderate. It's really, as so many ethics things are, a case by case basis. But
I'll tell you who I don't think it's tricky for. For the average citizen, I don't think it's tricky for them. I think they think that government officials shouldn't take stuff and gifts from people. I think in their mind, it's like, no, it's easy for me to say you don't take it. So it may be convoluted and tricky from a legal perspective, but I think for our citizenry, it is not tricky.
Yeah, I mean, common sense would tell you, no, I mean, just because I'm a government official doesn't give me a right to take a gift. I mean, no.
Yeah.
But there are some minor exceptions. And the lieutenant governor comes to mind because he does tourism and such. And so there are some exceptions. It's just, Ross is right though, it's kind of confusing area.
Yeah.
And bad advice from attorneys doesn't help.
Yeah.
Well, I think, the table you talked about, the nexus with the job and the nexus with.
yeah, when I do training, in the past, like if you go to a conference and someone gives you a stress ball, that's not likely to make you change your whole way of doing stuff. Right? If they like take you out to a 5-course meal and give you a bunch of wine and then the next day ask for a contract, that's where the issues arise.
Yeah, it's the in-between this.
Commissioner Reynolds, on this, one of the things you may want to consult with is, and I was on the regional committee for ICMA, International City Managers Association. They have ethics policy as an organization, and you may want to look at that. Also, the county officials. So in ICMA and the League of Counties also work together on some of those issues, and they have put out a lot of information as well as policies on ethics for their members. And so I think that would be a good resource for this office.
Yeah, that's true. And another one would be CALEA. Are you familiar with CALEA? Commission on Law Enforcement Accreditation. And there's one for fire too.
Yes.
I know CALEA has stepped into those areas.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. Just one question, the Nevada Gaming Compliance Board, I assume that's control? That the
Yes.
Gaming Control Board?
Yes, it is.
Nevada.
I thought we had a new board.
Yeah. Just making sure that wasn't missing something. All right, if there's nothing else on that item, we'll move on to item 10. The commissioner comments on any matters?
I just want to say, today is Global Ethics Day. So please note it. I mean, it seems like our October meeting always falls on Global Ethics Day. So happy Global Ethics Day.
Any other comments on upcoming meetings? Things you'd like to see changed in the way we conduct meetings? There are no other comments, then I'd like to say thank you to staff for the preparation and for all the materials, appreciate it. And that will bring us, I think, to our last item, which is public comment. Comment by any member of the public will be limited to 3 minutes. No action will be taken under this agenda item. Is there any public comment?
We do have public comment. Jordan Zito would like to make public comment at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Gito. Please go ahead.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Can you hear me just fine?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm a little concerned. I know that maybe the Commission on Ethics may not be the best place to go to, but the best place to go to with the Commission on Judicial Discipline is not addressing properly. So I'm having just a little bit of issue with some of the judges and justices in this state. And I've paid for a jury trial in the 2nd Judicial District Court, and I paid the $520 instead of the $350 or $320. The state legislature says that the governor approved the increase in jury fees, but when I look on Nellis and I look at the Journal, the governor actually said, no, I send you my letters of objection and I don't approve. Yet the 2nd Judicial District Court in Washoe County upped the fee, but the court in Carson City did not up the fee. So it's not like a uniform statewide thing, even though it's being said it is. And I'm having some trouble getting the Judicial Discipline Commission to enforce their rules and their procedures under the Nevada Revised Code of Judicial Conduct. And it does say upon any information that the commission will suspend a judge for committing a felony. And there's just a lot of false record going on. Like currently the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is saying, it keeps filing stuff saying that I'm not filing. But in case 88877, it's right there on the Nevada Appellate Court website. She says that I was given time that I needed to file 2 documents, either a request for a transcript and a docketing statement. And it's right there on there. I showed it in the picture on the comments here. And I did file the docketing statement in a timely fashion. And then just a couple of days ago, and this was in June or July. And just a couple of days ago, she filed an order saying that she's going to dismiss the case because I failed to file the required documents. It says to date, appellant has failed to file the documents, but it's right in there that I did file them. So I'm having a lot of trouble here getting things that I've paid, goods and services that I've paid for, and just in general with access to justice, and in general with administration of justice, timely, speedy administration of justice. And so I was just hoping that maybe at this could be put on an agenda item for the November 13 meeting, and I could maybe correspond through email to get some of the concerns to get printed out on paper for you guys to look at.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I can stand to be corrected, but we don't have jurisdiction over any judicial officers. The Nevada ethics law only gives us jurisdiction over the legislative and executive, and even limited over the legislative branch and then over the executive branch, but not over the judicial branch of government. They've been carved out of our jurisdiction.
I understand.
I don't know if I don't know if you've tried the administrative office of the courts. I don't know if
they're kind of, unfortunately, they're kind of in on this too. So the administrative office of the court submitted something to the Supreme Court to amend the appellate rules of procedure and the electronic conversion and filing rules. And then the court went ahead and the Chief Justice and all 7 associate judges went and signed on to that. And they say they provided public comment period, but they solicited it is what they called it. And I was not solicited on that at all. And it affects these pending cases that I have. And so it was like last minute, they tried to change the rules on me. And I'm like, okay. So I went and read the whole thing, and I'm like, okay, well, your rules really didn't change much. So I don't know why you did that. And then they're not following, Rule 58 of Nevada Rules of Civil Procedure and providing notice of entry of order and serving that on all parties. And it's really convoluted. So then I guess for you guys, I would like to address I think it was Senate Bill 222 from the last legislative session. that said it would pertain to jury fees, but in the journal, I don't see anything in the legislature pertaining to jury fees. And it does say that the governor did not approve, I do not give my signature of approval, and I send this bill back with my letters of objection. And yet the majority leader says, and put in Nellis, that bill is returned with governor's signature of approval. Is that something we can address, or you can address?
No, again, that's again, even over the legislature, we're limited, we can't address their core functions. And the passage of bills would be one of them, voting on bills would be one of their core functions. So unfortunately, that's really not within our jurisdiction.
Oh boy. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, because I mean I do have CV 23-00242 against the state legislature where I'm alleging that. And I've already provided I've already served the majority leader of the legislature with some of the information. I just haven't served with the complaint in the summons yet. And as right now, I'm waiting on the chief judge of the Second Judicial District Court to approve that and then send me the summons so that I can go ahead and serve them officially and get it so that way they have their 45 days under law to, a reply. But I just want to make sure I got that done and maybe got it out so that you guys, because it looks like it appears you're in Las Vegas.
We're in Las Vegas today, yes.
Yeah, okay. And I don't know if you regularly do business in Las Vegas or if sometimes you come up here to Reno, but I'm a permanent fixture here in Reno. I've been here 30 years. I've been here my whole life, so.
Understood. Well, thank you for your comment. It sounds like you're proceeding the way you should with your concerns. And I'm sorry that we're not able to help you with them.
No, that's all right. I just figured I would at least try. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Is there any other public comment?
We do not have other public comment.
I just, to make a record in the public comment period, we did receive Mr. Church's written comment that was provided to commissioners this morning prior to the meeting and will be uploaded on our meeting page following the meeting.
Great. Mr. Church, I see you're still with us. You don't have any further comment? Okay. With that, I would accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a second?
I'll say.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.